Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hope that you are having a tremendous Tuesday. We had a lot to unpack today. First and foremost, I do want to give a shout out to the country of Haiti. Evidently, they had a rather significant explosion and they had the loss of, at this point in time, 62 lives. So peace and blessings going out to our brothers and sisters down in Haiti. I just, of course, it tears at your spirit. So many difficult things have happened to our Asian brothers and sisters. Some we know, some that we don't know. But just the idea that brothers trying to work, make a living for their families, sisters trying to work, make a living for their families, and the factory explodes. Of course, it speaks to worker safety, but these things just seem to just be a little bit of a pile-on effect. So much love to our brothers and sisters in Haiti as well. I want to give a shout out to my niece, Miss Akia Jones, who is expecting a baby boy. I officiated her wedding a couple months ago, and I just got the news from my mom. We're very happy for her. That's number two. Number three, I know he don't want this to happen, but I'm going to do it anyway. I got to give a shout out to my big pops, Mr. Clifford Moss Jr., who has embarked on yet another year of life. He is 78 years old. My brother and sister, I said 78 years old. He doesn't look a day over 77. No, I'm just kidding. We Mosses age well. Just to be able to have my pops around, there's a thing about having your fathers around and the transition from it being your father to being your father and your friend to your peer is always a beautiful thing. So I'm blessed that way. So Big Moss, I put a little something in your bank account. I hope you didn't spend it all in one place. I just want you to go out and have a good time. That opportunity to just have another day, breathe air. It doesn't mean, I know it means a lot for you, but it means a lot for us. You do a lot for us and the family, and you're the leader of the Moss family. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Happy birthday, sir. All right. So let's get to this whole idea. The January Insurrection Mockumentary. Now, you've heard of a documentary. A documentary is that we look at facts, we look at truthful facts, or we question facts on things that happen, whether it be historical events or concerts or things like that. Documentaries, things, biographies, things about people's lives. We learn intricate things about people's lives. The mockumentary, brothers and sisters, is something that we used to do a long time ago. There's something called This is Spinal Tap. And the mockumentary was so live that a lot of people thought it was an actual documentary. Like there was an actual band called Spinal Tap. And it was interesting because I saw some of it. And a lot of what you see in some of the sitcoms where a person sits down and they talk about themselves or a situation, or even some of these shows like American Idol, where they talk about this, it's borrowed from that tradition. But something happened today. I started receiving texts. I got a shout out from brother JT sending text about all the people who reached out to the press secretary for Donald Trump, Mark Meadows, during the insurrection. You guys know about the insurrection. But during the insurrection, to have him do something, to be something of a positive advocate for change in the midst of all this chaos. I'm going to roll some stuff because I think it's important that I don't paraphrase anything that's being said, that I don't make up anything that's being said, and I don't leave out anything that's being said. It was this scope, brothers and sisters, whereby even the people who had gone along with this lie, with this facade for so long, at some point in time said, wait a minute, this is beyond my pay grade. I can't go any further. Now, this is not to say that they were doing it to uphold justice or America or democracy or the Constitution, of course. They found that at this point in time, there were opportunity costs to be associated with the lie that had been perpetrated. See, when you don't stop something that's a lie right here, it grows and metastasizes. And this is what you find, brothers and sisters, to the point where we've had to have a committee and a subcommittee on January 6th, the insurrection. Here's the thing, though, brothers and sisters. We saw it with our own eyes. We looked in the eyes in real time and said, these people are attacking our capital. These people are making a mockery of democracy. These people don't respect the electoral process. These people don't respect anybody except this lie, which ironically is the thing that empowers them to do what they did. So I called this a mockumentary, and the reason why is because as we watch it, we're being mocked. Let me explain. For all of us that had to stand in line and stand in front of our desk when we were young kids and put our hands over our heart and pledge allegiance to the United States of America, it's a mockery. My mother told me you had to do that because that's part of being American. It wasn't part of being American. It's part of being integrating the system that you thought was going to be fair for you. And for all of us that had to put our hands over our heart and pledge allegiance to America, pledge allegiance to America, knowing that our schools were run down, knowing that young black men were being killed, knowing that dope was in our community, knowing that we weren't even able to get housing, knowing that education system was lousy, we put our hand on our heart, we pledged allegiance to this idea. It was a mockery. And I'll be the first one to tell you, it shaped anything and everything I've done as a comedian, as a teacher, moving forward, as a man, period. I don't respect the system that does not respect me. Thus, you've heard me say we need to extract ourselves from this system. This is a case, brothers and sisters, of the inmates taking over the asylum. But we call them politicians. We call them lawmakers. This whole scenario of January 6th bears the fruit of no black people, bears the fruit of no poor people, bears the fruit of no Indian, no Native American. It bears the fruit of no Latinos. It bears the fruit of nothing except selfish self-interest, continually trying to uphold a system, and we know it doesn't work. At 2021, we're now looking at 2022, still having this conversation. And this conversation, brothers and sisters, is a bridge. This is not a separate conversation. This is not something where you're going to get a revolution or a resolution. What you're going to get is a carryover. It's the old political kick the can down the road. You know what the thing about kicking the can down the road? Nobody picks up the can. But if you're black or you're Latino or you're Native American and somebody sees that can there, somehow you are polluting. Not for our white brothers and sisters. This is a political strategy. And it's been okay for quite a long time. I have made a living, brothers and sisters, at looking at idiosyncrasies in the political system, idiosyncrasies in religion, and idiosyncrasies in white supremacy. The people that ascribe to that, the people who believe that white makes right, that white exceptionalism that I've talked about all the time, and the people who are afraid to challenge it. Yes, brothers and sisters, is preached, tired, and fed up. Hell yeah. Because these are some of the dumbest damn people in the world. But they're in powerful positions. And those positions allow them to shape and frame what it is for us to live in America. This is not 2021. This is 1950, brothers and sisters. This is Emmett Till walking. These are prosecutors going in, trying to prosecute white men for killing a young black boy. And they were only out to deliberate less than 60 minutes, and they said it would have been longer, but they didn't order ice cream. This is what I'm talking about, brothers and sisters. You think law works a certain way? It does not work a certain way. It works a certain way for the people who develop the laws. Now, we're going to get back here, and I'm going to give you some examples, brothers and sisters, some very hardcore examples about why we should be developing our own system of justice and legal framework and legal fortitude. We'll be right back. This is a shout out show. Satana, let's get it rolling. Thank you. right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back to us. Before we even get started, like I said, I want to send out our hearts and duas to our brothers and sisters in Haiti. Shout out to Aunt Shirley. Glad you're back home from the hospital. You know, I feel much better about that situation. Thank everybody for their duas for my Aunt Shirley. Listen, let's go ahead and get our people up here in the space. First, we got Mama Son, Mary Moss. That's my Mama Son saying, hello, family. Thank you so much for tuning in, Mom. We appreciate you. You signed on early today. You ain't messing around today. Mom, we appreciate you. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Next up, we got Sister Ree, my Sister Ree. How you doing? Talking about hello, family. Hello to you, Sister Ree. We appreciate you. Hope everything is going well on your side of the world and family's good. Derek's good. Jawan's good. Your health is improving. You know, we always keep you in our duas. We want to see you healthy, sister. So make sure you keep us up to date. All right, next up. Is that it, Sister Sanana? I think that might be it. Oh, we got Johnny L. Thomas, my sidekick, my little brother, who was sending me information about all of these texts. JT, I appreciate you. We were thinking alike today. I was going to do another topic, but this one was just too much. It was just right there in front of me. I felt like I would be amiss if I didn't talk about it today because it's timely. It ties into so many things. You know, here on the Shout Out Show, some of the things that we talk about, brothers and sisters, they're not necessarily timely in a linear way, meaning that when we're talking about it, it's in a conceptual way, but you find a lot of times when you do this, parts in news and events seem to fit into those things. So this will be one of those things where I'm going to talk today, but I'm going to try and talk about what's coming down the pike potentially in the near future, particularly in the midterm elections, and we're going to talk about that as well. Okay. What else we got? My main man, Altar Fashid. What's going on, brother? What's going on in the Great White North of Canada, my dear brother? Thank you so much for tuning in. We call Altar Canadian ambassador, man. Make sure the quality of the show is good on this side of the border and that side of the border. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Next up. All right. That's right. Happy birthday, sir. Happy birthday to Mr. Moss, Mr. Clifford Moss Jr. He is a junior. There's only one senior, only one junior. Okay. Thank you so much, Reed. Next up, of course, we have our consultant producer. What would the show be without a consultant producer? I tell you, it'd be me all up in your face trying to. I'm messing up. I'm joking. You know what? It's quality of the show. Making sure that you have a sounding board, somebody that goes through stuff about production ideas, production concepts, what we did wrong, what we didn't do wrong, what we can improve, things we need to drop, framework of the show, format of the show. These things that Satan and I have been talking well over 500 some episodes. So I appreciate Satan every time you come on the show. Thank you so much. You are appreciated. Next up is the topic. Wendy Ween. Don't look it up. I don't want you to look it up. Wendy Ween is a woman, a divorced woman in Michigan, the state of Michigan, relatively close to the city of Detroit. Divorced lady having some problems with her husband. So she decided the way to handle it was to get the husband out of the picture. Does this sound familiar? To get him out of the picture. So what Wendy did, and I'm not saying Wendy is not smart or not prudent, but Wendy wanted to hire a hitman. So what did Wendy do? She went on the internet and found a website called www.rentahitman.com. I'm not lying to you. www.rentahitman.com. Wendy filled out an application saying that this is who I want, this is where he lives, She filled out an application. Now, let me tell you guys about www.rentahitman.com. It's a fraud site. The guy is my age. He basically put this site up, and he felt that people who came on the website looking for a hit person, they were dangerous people to society, and he would take the information and pass it on to the proper legal authorities. Here's the deal, though. Wendy didn't have a lot of money. Wendy was broke at the Ten Commandments. So Wendy said, I don't have a lot of money to get people killed. I can come up with about $5,000. Now, listen to what I'm saying, brothers and sisters, because if it's coming out of Wendy's mouth, it's absolutely incriminating. Long story short, she's reading everything. And the guy who runs the website, he's actually said, I give people a cooling off period. Maybe they're just mad. I give them a cooling off period to walk away from the situation. Not Wendy. No. Wendy went on and signed up. And of course, she connected with a hitman who was actually a plainclothes officer and told him all her business, got the money, application. Well, Wendy's going to get sentenced, brothers and sisters. You know how that is. They found her guilty. But it's so obvious. It's so obvious. And I bring up Wendy's situation because we are dealing with a house debate. A house debate. We are debating on people who essentially stood by and let a crime happen, an entire insurrection. This is not enough, brothers and sisters, because if you go back in the past, there was even a debate over whether we should even have a committee. Whether we should have a committee. Listen, let me tell you something. What I saw on January 6th, you can't unsee. The people getting shot, the people trying to run in. I mean, house security people trying to save politicians. You can't unsee it. Yet, people want to act like it didn't happen. You know, a big part about this whole thing about the Capitol insurrection, and this is coming out in emails, brothers and sisters, was even the people who were the biggest Trump supporters said this is a bad idea, this is good, tell him to stop it. But it wasn't for the welfare of the politicians in the building, the welfare of the security people in the building, the welfare of just bystanders involved in this situation. It wasn't even about, listen, save these people from themselves. It wasn't even about that. This could have been a totally different situation. It could have been a situation when people came to the Capitol expecting a riot. And guess what? Appropriate firearms and armed officers were there, and he lit these people up. This could have been a massacre. Yet we don't talk about it. We are subscribing to the mockumentary aspect of this thing. And the thing about a mockumentary, brothers and sisters, is things are presented in a random space. But the reason why we're funny, the reason why they're funny and we laugh and we appreciate it and we like these mockumentaries, brothers and sisters, is because it's not true. We know it's not true. In this situation, people are telling us something that's true. All of a sudden, it didn't happen. Let me tell you this. Something that happened, all of a sudden, we didn't see it. We did not recognize it with our own two eyes. Our own set of cognitive skills cannot somehow interpret what we actually saw. When I was a school teacher, and I have to be careful about talking about when I was a school teacher. I don't want to put distance between our conversation and our relationship because I'm talking about being a teacher and people feel like I can't relate because you want to teach. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being a teacher, being a human being. One of the hardest things that you had to do was grade a student on their merit, knowing that if you graded them on their merit, they may not pass to the next grade. I had one kid I had to hold back. His name was Terrence. I felt horrible about it, but Terrence didn't do his work. I pleaded with Terrence, please, Terrence, do your work. I talked to his mother, and Terrence shut me down. And when he walked into class that day, he had been a part of a system where Terrence doing these things, it worked for him. But when he came to me and he said, what's my grade? I said, Terrence, you're going to have to repeat the 5th grade. And he was crushed. He was confused. He didn't understand. I said, Terrence, I've been talking to you for the last 5 months. Do your homework. Be ready for tests. Participate. I did all these things. And all he could say was, you mean you're going to fail me? I said, no, you failed yourself. Well, the political system is a lot like Terrence. That these things have gone on and on and on and on and on. And what you have is a recursive theory that people feel like they don't have to accept responsibility for what they do. While we're talking about this, I was going down the road. I saw a truck. You know what the the back of this truck said, Trump 2024. You have got to be kidding me. That this man believes I am entitled to run for president again and do it again. But he should believe it, because it has a whole cadre of people who cower to whatever he says. I'm going to show something. Satan, let's go ahead and get that video ready. I'm going to show you guys this video. This woman is Liz Cheney. This lady was absolutely castigated because she voted to impeach Donald Trump, a rightful vote. And the Republican Party took this woman to task. They censored her. They took off of commercials. Not of commercial, but off of committees. And it was a valuable lesson because she stood her ground. Now this lady is actually going to tell you about these texts. Go ahead, Satana.
Meadows received numerous text messages, which he has produced without any privilege claim, imploring that Mr. Trump take the specific action we all knew his duty required. These text messages leave no doubt the White House knew exactly what was happening here at the Capitol. Members of Congress, the press, and others wrote to Mark Meadows as the attack was underway. One text Mr. Meadows received said, quote, "We are under siege here at the Capitol." Another, quote, "They have breached the Capitol." In a third, Mark, "Protesters are literally storming the Capitol, breaking windows on doors, rushing in. Is Trump going to say something?" A fourth, "There's an armed standoff at the House chamber door." And another from someone inside the Capitol, "We are all helpless." Dozens of texts, including from Trump administration officials, urged immediate action by the president. Quote, "POTUS has to come out firmly and tell the protesters to dissipate. Someone is going to get killed." In another, Mark, "He needs to stop this now." A third, in all caps, "Tell them to go home." A fourth, and I quote, "POTUS needs to calm this shit down." Indeed, according to the records, multiple Fox News hosts knew the president needed to act immediately. They texted Mr. Meadows, and he has turned over those texts. Quote, "Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy," Laura Ingraham wrote. "Please get him on TV, destroying everything you have accomplished," Brian Kilmeade texted. Quote, "Can he make a statement? Ask people to leave the Capitol," Sean Hannity urged. As the violence continued, one of the president's sons texted Mr. Meadows, quote, "He's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough," Donald Trump Jr. texted. Meadows responded, quote, "I'm pushing it hard. I agree." Still, President Trump did not immediately act. Donald Trump Jr. texted again and again, urging action by the president. Quote, "We need an Oval Office address. He has to lead now. It has gone too far and gotten out of hand," end quote. But hours passed without necessary action by the president. These non-privileged texts are further evidence of President Trump's supreme dereliction of duty during those 187 minutes.
So you see, in some regards, there's a polarization of narratives. If you go and watch Fox News during that time, there was very little coverage of the insurrection. And then when it was bought out, it was somehow that people infiltrated this peaceful protest, dressed as Trump supporters. How can you even figure out who's a Trump supporter or not? Dressed as Trump supporters who went there specifically to cause violence and draw attention away from the big lie. And what you're going to find out even more, though, brothers and sisters, is that Mr. Mark Meadows, and this is the other thing I have to throw out. Why do we have to subpoena him for his text? You're a government official. You're a government official. When Barack Obama became president, you know what thing they had? They took his BlackBerry. You can't have your BlackBerry, Mr. President. You can use this one. The press secretary, it's the same thing. Hell, I paid a bill for that man's cell phone. I demand to see the text. And here we are having debates. Let me tell you something. I know a guy who spoke in a conversation, a group of people. He said, man, da-da-da-da, and he said something about blowing up something. And someone overheard him. And they brought the person who overheard him, who was actually eavesdropping on the conversation. That was not the context of what he said. And they brought a security guard and they brought a law enforcement official. And at that point in time, I'm sitting here going, wait a minute. I was here when they had that conversation. This person was not in the room. However, the value of perspective goes to this person. Hear me now. The value of perspective goes to this person. Why are we saying this? Because here it is, January 6th. How many people have really gone to jail outside of the protests? If you incite a riot, just like I'm talking about this guy who used the blow-up word, and he was not talking about that. He was talking about something totally different. Why is it that they have the perspective to somehow frame what was said in the conversation? This is the same thing with Fox. Here's where the mockumentary comes in, brothers and sisters. Fox has been running a mockumentary for quite a number of years. Somehow, what this man says and what he does is not what we see, is what they think we saw. And if we don't say we agree with what they saw, somehow we're irrelevant. We're irrelevant. I said this is not 2021. This is 1950, brothers and sisters. 1950 for a black person meant that if you saw a man kill another man, if you saw a white man kill another black man, a white man kill another white man, if you got into court, your perspective didn't matter because they didn't see you as a person. They didn't see you as anything measuring having a quality of life or respect, definitely not equality. But somehow, some way, that's the perspective, that's stuff. And that's where we are here today. Wendy Wine essentially went through this whole process of hiring a hitman. The facts are not disputable. In fact, the website she went to hire the hitman, he said he puts all kind of red flags and then let you know that what you're doing is illegal. Trying to hire somebody to kill somebody. They said they got 18,000 operatives. He's talking about law enforcement people. He gave every example of why you shouldn't do it. And here we are giving every example of why you shouldn't do it, why you shouldn't do it again, and you still have people trying to do it. The thing about Meadows, and I hope this is the thing that really, really comes out, brothers and sisters, the thing I really, really pray comes out, is during this whole thing with this chaos and this January 6th, and many of you know this, it was a ruse. They were trying to go down in Georgia to figure out how they could shift, how they can reverse the effects of election, how they can go to Georgia and somehow get these votes. Let me tell you something. When they went to the Capitol, brothers and sisters, it was not about protesting the election results. It was about overturning the election results. Had you had an armed mob, hear me now, had you had an armed mob that ran into the Capitol, that took politicians that they didn't like hostage, that somehow held the space of the Capitol. And the question comes down to Donald Trump. What are you going to do about it? That's a scary question, isn't it? It's a very scary question. To see, when you start rewinding things, brothers and sisters, the coup was a rehearsal. I don't want to go over, but I'm going to say this. The coup was a rehearsal. The first one was when they had the protest down in Lafayette Square, and Donald Trump had everybody moved out so he could take a picture in front of a church with the Bible upside down. Now, people go, preach, what are you talking about? Well, JT can probably, he can back me on this. Listen, brothers and sisters, in any act of war, the first group that goes in are the Marines. When you bring in the Army, guess what? That is a declaration of war. The Marines are policing action. The Army is a war declaration. The idea that he took in a helicopter, or the powers that be decided to use a helicopter to disperse the crowd, was a rehearsal. Point of fact, you can't do that. The people who are on the ground, brothers and sisters, they were not Army folks. Therefore, you can't bring in an Army plane. Even if you're National Guard, that can't happen. It was a rehearsal. What you missed is the fact that we were extremely close to a military junta. I'm talking about where the military takes over. And the military, under his control, had the opportunity to implement martial law. Yeah, this sounds far-fetched, but it's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched, particularly when you're dealing with a mockumentary, where some people take the truth and they tell you it's not what you see. And at some point in time, you go, well, maybe it's not what I saw. It is exactly what I saw. There's no way, brothers and sisters, no way any of us is going to look the other way and say this was not an attempt to topple democracy. We were looking at a dictator, and I remember this clearly. A lot of us were having conversations about this man not leaving office peacefully of his own accord. And we joked and we laughed, and I made jokes about it. But in my mind, I was like, but he's a type of dude who won't leave. He's a parasite. He's a parasite of the highest level. And people keep laying down for him so he can feed on them. He feeds on their fear. He feeds on their insecurity. He feeds on their job security. And as a result, we become a less meaningful government, and we're a weakened government. And the weakened government turns out weakened policies. And the weakened policies turns out weakened society. And you know what happens when a weakened society gets with a strong society? The only way the weakened society can beat the strongest society is we're going to come up with weak laws that preserve our position and our advantage. That's your show today for the Shout Out Show. Stay away from those mockumentaries. Don't watch Fox. Okay, next up, Satana. Let's go ahead and get our people out here. Hey, Wa'alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Carter. How you doing? Thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you. Again, that's the wrap up for the January Insurrection Mockumentary, brothers and sisters. I hope I did a decent job trying to tell you what's going on in your world and what's going on around you. Let's go ahead and wrap up and get to our sponsors. We're going to give a shout out to www.befinancialindependent.com. Again, that's www.befinancialindependent.com. I don't have the new number memorized, so work with me here. It is 202-508-3780. Again, that's 202-508-3780. I feel like I'm at the doctor's office reading that line like ELJK. That's what I feel like. But shout out to BeFinancialIndependent.com. And if you are thinking about a quality Islamic graduate education, look no further than Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Again, that's Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Go to Bayan Online. Again, that's Bayan Online. They have a full catalog of their programs, offerings. I think I don't think you can get in on the spring right now. I think they're closed, but check it out though. They have some of the premier programs: Islamic Studies, Islamic Leadership, Islamic Education. I keep going on and on. I have the Muslim Chaplaincy Program. Check them out. And we also want to give a shout out, of course, to Convenient Urgent Care. Convenient Urgent Care with 3 convenient locations throughout the city of Houston and suburbs: Cypress, Pasadena, and Houston on Parkham Road. Listen, that's our show today, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day. I appreciate you. And I'm just saying, think, brothers and sisters, this is not anything. I know I might get a little heated, a little agitated, but it's just passion. It's just passion. And I don't like the fact that people are being hurt by these situations. This policy, these politics, and this power share and power grab. I'm thinking about what do we leave for the generations behind us, and how will we be judged? So I'm out of here. Happy birthday, Pops. I'm out. Take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The Shout Out Show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, team, we've come to the end of yet another show. And I have to say, I had a good time, and I hope that you had a good time as well. Listen, at this part of the show, we have no more show. I could literally sing a song saying we have no more show. However, to spare all of us that embarrassment and chaos, I'm just going to say, please join us tomorrow here on the Shout Out Show, Monday through Thursdays, and every first Saturday, we do our Saturday Spotlight. Here we are again, 5 to 5:30 on the Central Time. And of course, we're going to do our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock p.m. And of course, that would be 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So, time for you to go, because it's time for me to go. I think I will do that song. Thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for coming to the show. That's all the lyrics I wrote. But you get the idea. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum.